So before we actually do coaching sessions, it's important to understand what the heck happens in a coaching session. So whether you are coaching yourself or others, it's pretty important to understand what is the structure of a coaching session. And a coaching session basically has 3 key elements to it. So make sure throughout the program you are working in the fun manual. So on the front it should say fun manual, and the other one should say fun templates. If you haven't put your name on the fun templates one, please do so now. So if you haven't written your name on the fun templates one, please do so now. As I said, the templates one we'll be using when you're actually coaching people, but the manual we'll be using for the whole program. There's enough templates in the manual for you to do the processes here at the course, but the templates you'll use later on with your clients, your first 5 clients, you'll be able to utilize that on. And if you are resitting the program, you're going to notice already that all the systems are completely different just from last program. And we've even changed the order and sequence of things because we're constantly updating it. So if you sat it only just a couple of months ago and you're wondering which one should I use this one that you've got now. Again, we update these programs every single time we run them. And we just adjust little tweaks and modifications here and there just to make sure that it flows even more smoothly. So the session structure is the thing we have to look at now. And the reason why it's important to have a good session structure is because the more structured you are, the more certainty the client has in what's going on. So structure really is a key element of coaching. And there's a lot of people out there that are doing this very vague, abstract, unstructured sort of a process. And you find that clients are getting very vague, abstract, unstructured kind of results. And so the more we can be structured in what we're doing, the better it is for the client. In fact, the client is coming to you because, let's face it, their life is unstructured. That's really what's going on. They're disorganized, they're all over the place. The last thing they need is a coach to be the same, right? So the more structured we can be, the easier it is for the client to get the results they're looking for. So when it comes to a session structure, basically what makes up a session is 3 key elements. And those key elements are on that page there that you're looking at that says session structure at the top of it. So these 3 key elements, first of all, in the first 5 to 10 minutes or so of your session, keeping in mind that your sessions run for however long they actually run for, I, as I said, like to sort of move people away from the time-based structure, but when you first kick off, it's very hard to not do time-bound. All these people in business are going to say, don't ever exchange time for money. But when you first start coaching, that's all you're going to do because it's just the way you have to work it out in your head. You know, as a coach, you have to know how much time you've got. It's not an easy thing to just launch into results-based coaching and transacting from that perspective. So I normally find that sessions run anywhere from 30 to 90 minutes. Generally speaking, that's what you're pretty much looking at. A lot of my sessions now go for about 10 to 15 minutes. That's because the client calls up with whatever they want to work on. It's very clear. We run the process and we're out and it's no problems at all. But predominantly speaking, you'd say a session in coaching goes anywhere from 30 minutes to 90 minutes. When you first get started, you'll be lucky if you can do your sessions in under 3 hours because something will happen and you'll just keep on processing and working, and 3 hours later you'll wonder what the heck happened to my day. It's going to happen pretty much, I think, to everyone in this room. Please do your best to prove me wrong. But we just want to help, and we want to help so much that we just don't want them to get off the phone or out of the room until you've helped everything, right? But when you have these 3-hour-long sessions, you've got to face it, the client can't handle that. They just can't deal with that kind of concept. It's very difficult for them to have an understanding of how to stay in tune for 3 hours. But generally we're looking at 30 to 90 minutes. So if we have a look here, the very first part is accountability. So the first thing you do in a coaching session, very first thing, after you've obviously engaged with rapport, engaged with what, please? Rapport. Thank you. So after you've done the rapport, the next thing you do is you just hold them accountable. If you haven't done any sessions so far where you don't have anything to hold them accountable to, you can basically just go over the questionnaire that you read last night with them. But if they have already done a session with you, then there's action steps they would be wanting to take between sessions. Remember, the coach's job predominantly is designed to get the client to take new action. That's the whole process. So your job is to see how quickly you can get someone to take a different action in their life. Because if they take different actions, they'll get different results. That's kind of how it works. So the accountability in the first 5 to 10 minutes of the session, or the first 5 to 15 minutes, depending on how long the session is, really is just about, how'd you go last week? Was there any obstacles? Any blocks come up? How'd you go the action steps? You know, what worked, what didn't, what did you learn? These kind of things. I have a pre-session questionnaire that I send out to all clients before the session begins. It's 14 questions. And as they have to answer that and send it back to me 24 hours before the coaching session. That gives me a very good detailed understanding of step 1 anyway. So if the client has filled in the pre-session questionnaire in enough detail, it's different to the one you read last night. The one you read last night is I'm about to start coaching. I've got another one that you fill in every single time, 24 hours before we have a coaching session. It sets your intention, clarifies exactly what you want to do in the session, clarifies what you're working through, the whole thing. And it's kind of an accountability sheet. So if it's been filled in correctly, I don't have to spend a lot of time on accountability at the start of my calls. If you don't have a pre-session questionnaire, spend about 5 to 10 minutes just really chatting to them. What's working? What's not working? What obstacles? What did you learn? Those kind of things. One of my favorite questions to ask a client is, what surprised you most last week? And the reason I like the question, what surprised you most last week, is because when you ask someone what surprised you most last week, the funny thing about surprise is it's one of the few things that you cannot fake. You can't pretend to surprise yourself. It's actually an impossible activity, because to surprise yourself means you did not have any idea it was going to happen. So one of the few things a brain cannot fake is surprise. Actors can act surprised, but they don't actually have surprise, if you get the idea behind it. The reason I like things that surprise people is because they show me that they are getting more into alignment with their purpose in life. People who are truly living true to their highest self have incredible levels of synchronicity that occur and a huge amount of surprises in a good way. So when you start to see your clients getting more and more surprises each week, it's a good indicator that they are living way more in alignment with who they are, way more congruent to what their soul or their heart or their higher self or lower self really does want to have happen. So I pay a lot of attention to anything that surprises my clients. In a good way. There's always surprises in a bad way, of course they happen, but surprises in a good way are a great indicator that your client is really stepping into their truth. And in fact, it's one of the indicators that Wayne Dyer would often talk about. The number of surprises you have often correlates to how much you are truly on purpose in life. So I really like to ask that question. So after I've gone through a couple of different questions with them, again, the pre-session questionnaire will have all these questions in it. So everything I'm telling you is actually written in it. I'm just listing some of the questions out of the 14. But you can get that pre-session questionnaire, and rather than have your client fill it in, you can just go through it on the phone with them. And you can get through 14 questions quite quickly in about 5 to 10 minutes. And then that's it. You've got it very clear. It's a very clear structure, and you know what's going on from there.